Good afternoon. My name is Michael Outlaw, Community Liaison, Office of the Mayor, City of Erie. Before we begin, allow me to thank the Strengthening Police and Community Partnership Council and the Mayor's LGBTQ+ Council for their unwavering support to Chief Dance Bizzarni, the Erie Police Department, and Mayor Schember. As I previously stated during the last press conference, this work to strengthen police and community relations is not for the faint of heart. Mayor Schember will first explain his response and reflection to the actions of an Erie police officer on May 30th. Then you will hear from Chief Dance Bizzarni regarding the riot that unfortunately struck our beloved city. The chief will also provide details of the investigation of the Erie police officer who was involved with the protester. I will now turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Michael. This has been a very busy, trying time for everyone in Erie. To the people of Erie, I continue to hold myself accountable to be open, honest, transparent, and accessible. The riot and crimes that occurred on the evening of Saturday, May 30th, created a very complex situation that took time to analyze completely. We wanted to gather all the facts and look at every side. I would not allow myself to react emotionally and quickly apply a short-term band-aid. I wanted to look at the larger issues and take steps to unify, not divide Erie. To our Black and brown communities, I want to first acknowledge that for hundreds of years, you have been the subject of systematic discrimination, racism, and police brutality. I want you all to feel safe, welcome, and valued. You are an essential part of Erie. Hate and violence, like we experienced 2 weeks ago, will not move our community forward. Listening, learning, and making positive change will. My team and I are working towards real, sustainable, long-term change with my often stated goal of ending racism and prejudice in Erie. The whole community has a role to play in achieving that. Now, I'll address the incident with the officer and the protester. As part of the investigation, I learned that this is a veteran officer who has no prior complaints and has never exhibited any kind of behavior that warranted disciplinary action. He is a well-respected, upstanding member of the community. Chief Bizzarni will talk through the details of the investigation, which revealed that the officer did follow approved police procedures. However, while the level of force is permitted under the current policy, I have concluded that the manner in which it was applied by the officer was inappropriate. Taking all these factors into account, I made the decision to suspend the officer for 3 days without pay and limit him to desk duty until he completes sensitivity training, which will be with Reverend Dr. Rich McCarty, and will include de-escalation, cultural competency, and social justice. The command staff and the entire police department will also be required to take this same training. So we're doing 3 things. First, we're suspending the officer for 3 days without pay. Second, we're requiring sensitivity training for all Erie police officers. And third, we're revising the police policy and procedures based on the new city, state, and federal initiatives and reforms. By doing this, I'm hoping to send a very clear message to everyone in Erie. I am taking these actions to build a higher level of trust between the police and all Erie residents, especially for our Black and brown communities. In addition, we will also continue the 6 initiatives to improve the community and police relations that we've already started. And we're hoping these will be an important part of ending racism and prejudice in Erie forever. These 6 initiatives are: first, implement the use of police body and car cameras as quickly as possible. Second, expand our community policing efforts, including those with the Police Athletic League's partnership and the SPCP Trust Building Series with both Erie Public Schools and Erie Community Centers. Third, we support Sergeant Tom Lennox's new 2-year position to diversify the police force so it reflects the community it serves. Fourth, we'll conduct regular community group discussions, including the Strengthening Police Community Partnerships, the United Clergy of Erie, the LGBTQ+ Council, the New American Council, and the Better Together Council. Fifth, we'll schedule open study sessions with City Council on police policies and procedures. And finally, sixth, we'll activate the 8 People's Supper initiatives and draft a diversity, equity, and inclusion plan for Erie. Before I conclude, I would like to thank members of the SPCP Council and the LGBTQ+ Council who also provided input and feedback to us. Finally, I am committed to creating an environment in Erie where everyone is treated equally. Please join me in a peaceful but dramatic transformation of Erie into a supporting, thriving community that we all want. Next, I'm going to introduce Chief Dan Spizzarni, who will provide the details around the investigation. I have the utmost respect for the chief and have full faith and confidence in him and the hardworking men and women of the Erie Police Department. Chief Spizzarni.
Thank you, Mayor. We're here to address the action of an Erie police officer during the riot on May 30th. The officer arrived and watched peaceful protesters beginning at 6 p.m. Eventually, they were replaced by a different group, bent on confrontation and destruction. Beginning roughly at 9:20 p.m., all police personnel on the scene were subjected to attacks that included potentially deadly force. 2 hours into the riot, the officer encountered a protester. His decision to use force and the manner he did it needed to be reviewed within the existing department policies and procedures. Now, the day after the riot, I arrived at the Erie Police Department and learned of the video on social media. It showed an officer encountering a protester. My immediate thought upon viewing the video was disgust. I could not identify the officer from the video and immediately notified Erie Police Inspector Mark Sanders to investigate. A few minutes later, an officer arrived at my office and advised me that early in the morning he saw a video on social media of him using his foot to push a protester. He immediately expressed his remorse for how this appeared and explained why he acted in that manner. I advised him he was confined to desk duty and that the inspector would be conducting an internal investigation. Now, over the past 2 weeks, Inspector Sanders obtained statements from multiple officers who were present at the incident, including the officer involved. He reviewed many hours of surveillance camera footage from multiple angles. He looked at both the officer and the protester's actions during the entire event. He reached out to the protester's attorney to ask for an interview, but the request was denied. He obtained statements that the individual made to various news agencies. He reviewed the department's policies and procedures, and he reviewed the involved officers' records for any past issues. Inspector Sanders' investigative report is complete and has been turned over to the Erie County District Attorney, Jack Denieri, for an independent investigation. The use of force by police is closely monitored and must abide by the policies and procedures of the department. Force can be broken down into a progression from the least force, which is the mere presence of a uniformed officer, to the highest level, deadly force. Many factors are considered when applying any force. Now, during this incident, rioters were damaging and vandalizing property in the downtown area, putting the residents living above those businesses in danger. Officers themselves were under potentially deadly assault as rioters were attacking them by launching large mortar-style fireworks, Molotov cocktails, and bottles filled with gasoline. Rioters were also throwing rocks, bricks, and frozen water bottles to injure the officers. A protester was even shot by another in the crowd while the officers were being delayed by the seated protester. While the officers were attempting to assist the victim, they found themselves still under assault. At around 11:24 p.m., the officer was not only aware of the potentially deadly actions occurring, but he himself was experiencing them. He had a task to move his line of officers forward in an effort to try and disperse the angry and violent crowd. Announcements had been continuously made for 2 hours that this was now an unlawful gathering and that people must leave the area immediately. He then confronted several protesters who sat down in the middle of the street in an effort to prevent officers from doing their lawful duties, protecting life and property. The protester involved in this incident has stated that she, along with a few others, had positioned themselves between the police and the rioters, and that she heard repeated warnings to leave, but chose to remain while the others left. According to statements she made to the media, she heard gunshots and knew people were throwing fire at the police. This officer was clearly performing his duties under extremely dangerous conditions. He encountered a protester preventing police from advancing. Proper police procedure is to ensure no individuals get behind the police line as they move forward. The department's progressive steps of force that he used this night include a uniformed police presence, giving commands to move, repeating the orders to move, giving a warning if the person is non-compliant. And number 5, the actual use of minimal force. In this case, the use of mace. None of these steps were successful, and the officer was justified to increase the level of force. The next level, sometimes referred to as hands-on, includes pushing, pulling, or physical touching in order to move a person. The protester was in a seated position, and in that split second, the officer made a decision to utilize his foot to push the protester to get her to move. Upon review of several videos, it is clear the officer lifted his leg and used the bottom of his foot to push on the left arm of the sitting protester. It was not a striking kick. It was not to the head. Under our current department policies and procedures, the use of force was justified. The officer involved has always been professional, is highly respected, and extremely hardworking. He has never had a complaint against him. His actions have never come close to warranting any disciplinary action. Although we strive for perfection, we are human. We must look at the entire picture when we judge actions. Was the intention an honest attempt to do the right thing, or was intentionally cruel and premeditated? This incident, done under these circumstances, was not done intentionally or with the intent to harm, but with the purpose of doing a tough job under extremely difficult circumstances. I want to thank the members of the Strengthening Police Community Partnerships Council, the Mayor's LGBTQ+ Advisory Council, and the United Clergy of Erie for their candid comments during our meetings on this matter. Lastly, this experience was a crucial learning moment for our department. I ask the citizens of Erie to pray for the officers who protect us every day, that we may have the courage and conviction to do what's right all of the time. I ask for compassion and understanding as we move forward as a community united. Next, Michael Outlaw, our community liaison.
Thank you, Chief Dan. And thank you, Mayor Schember. Since Mayor Schember has been in office, he has boldly and courageously confronted the Goliath of racism. Rather than withdraw from the contentious and conflicted conversation of polarizing politics of race, Mayor Schember has become a repairer of the breach, a bridge builder of trust and transparency in and with communities of color. To the nonviolent, peaceful protesters who are exercising their First Amendment constitutional rights to join with their voice in action, the millions of people around the globe to speak against police brutality, the killing of unarmed Black men, women, and children, and calling for policy reform. I want to assure you that the mayor and his administration have heard your collective demands for accountability and justice. Please be assured that we are moving forward, positioned for the steady process of change. However, understand we need to continue to work together to bring about change in a peaceful, non-violent way. Next, to the brave men and women police officers who take pride in protecting and serving the community. The SPCP Council thanks and salutes you for modeling the behavior and leadership that reflects true community policing. I stand here with complete confidence and trust and support in the Mayor, Chief Dan Spizzermi, and the Erie Police Department, as well as the SPCP Council, committed to accountability, transparency, and working to strengthen police and community relations. As a Black man, please know that I sympathize and empathize with your frustration and challenges we see being played out around the world and in our community and the Erie Police Department. That frustration has been expressed internally over the last 2 weeks with the council, the mayor, Chief Dan, and other officers on his command staff. The members of the SPCP Council can attest. We engaged in challenging and at times heated conversations. Nonetheless, we remain steadfast in our integrity with the community and continue to stand in solidarity with the Erie Police Department and Mayor Schember. We are committed to keeping our hands to the plow of justice, accountability, and transparency to nurture the relationships with the community and the Erie Police Department. We have faith in our community, in Mayor Schember and Chief Dan, as well as the Erie Police Department. We are unswerving in our desire to listen and understand the cries and pleas of the citizenry so that we can work to build a better community for future generations. We remain resolute to ensure that Erie police officers honor their oath and not abuse their God-given authority to protect and serve. We also vow to hold ourselves accountable and our community accountable for our part to reconcile the bowels of peace and tranquility within our community in partnership with the Erie Police Department. We desire to remove the idiom, "I can't breathe," from the lexicon of our city and our society. We will continue to enlarge the SPCP Council by involving the community and Erie police officers as we navigate to connect the hearts and minds towards community policing. We are committed to empowering the community to become the beloved community desired or described by the visionary Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The mayor and his administration, Chief Dan, the Erie Police Department, the SPCP Council, the Better Together Council, New American Council, LGBTQ+ Council, the United Clergy are all committed to changing Erie for the better. But please, no, we cannot do this without you. Now the mayor will give his closing comments. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Michael. I'm sure there will be people who feel that what we are doing is too much. There are also people who will feel we aren't doing enough. We are doing what we believe is just and will bring Erie together as a community where everyone is accepted and valued, regardless of their religion, their ethnic heritage, their address, their gender, their age, their job, who they love, or the color of their skin. This ends today's press conference. Will now be available for individual interviews. Thank you very much for being here.